Hold on, guys. All right. Okay. Finally got
We
you. I
are
think I
here.
got it.
Hey,
Hey, I'm looking at some other things though. You got to turn your camera.
I just did. Yeah,
There you go. There we go. I was worried. I'm like, oh my goodness. I hope you're okay.
yeah. I had a I had a very unexpected busy day. So now that that's
I
out of the way, everything is in the clear.
I understand how that can be. I understand. Well, this is Wine, Wealth, and Tea, take two, guys. Like I told you, I had to go and check and make sure he was okay. And I found him. So, welcome to the live pod. And this
Good
evening,
to be back.
yeah, that's right. A lot of you, I don't know if you were able to see the second season where Garth was a guest on the Facebook Live podcast of Chrissy Comments Conversation. So now we are on IG under Wine, Wealth, and Tea. As I explained to people, I have my co-host who she's not on right now, but she will be joining me a little later for what we call the After Wine, Wealth, and Tea mix, where it's just me and her kind of powwowing, talking about some things. But tonight it's just me and you, and we're going to talk about a couple of things me and you discussed, which is gender wars. And I don't want
Yeah.
people to get scared, about it. And somebody said, who's that hand? That is our guest this evening. That is Garth Bryant. That's who that is. And he's a very, very, very intelligent brother who is coming to bring us his take on gender wars. So people don't get scared and think that this is, one of those we're going to be, we're going to really just talk about some things that matter. So tell people what your take is on gender war.
Well, first off, let me start give a premise as to really who I am and what I do. Like you mentioned,
Yeah.
my name is Gareth Bryant. I am a chaplain, and one of my specialties pertaining to chaplaincy is relationship counseling. So I do personal counseling, I do couples counseling, whether that be siblings, whether that be parents and children, children and parents, couples and couples, interventions, family interventions, relationship interventions, things like that. So that's one of the things that I do pertaining
Hmm.
to how I manifest my chaplaincy, my counseling, and my therapy. And one of the things that I've noticed is that unfortunately, we as people, as human beings, more so than at any other time in human history, we have allowed external venues to determine how we view each other introspectively, individually, as our own genders, as well as the opposite gender. And
Okay.
from my vantage point, that's a very serious problem.
So let me ask this. In being there, helping and being a therapist and a counselor for people that are going through these situations, I can imagine that can also be tiresome for you mentally, draining.
Spiritually, psycho-emotionally, primally, all of the above. It's very taxing. It's very stressful. And I would be a
Yeah,
liar, and I would be dishonest if I were to say it's not.
yeah. Because us as individuals, we carry a lot of heavy loads just on a daily basis. So then,
Just from
if
our
here I am
own
with my,
stuff.
right,
Right.
that's what I'm saying. Here I am with my load, and then I'm dealing with somebody else that has their load, and we come together, and then we dump on someone like you. That's just crazy heavy. So how do you handle the
How
day
do
to
I how
day?
do I cope?
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways that I cope. Me being a Muslim, there's a lot of Islamic ways that I use to channel and cope and release negative energy. One of
Hmm.
my favorite pastimes is actually writing. That's why I post so damn much on social media, because it helps me get through the day after having a rough day of counseling and therapy. It helps me to release.
Hmm.
So for
Hmm.
me, literacy is something that's very important, not just for me spiritually, but also important for me psycho-emotionally, in terms of me helping to exert that energy to clear my mind and to get my thoughts and feelings on pen and paper.
Yeah, because you can't continuously be there for people if you're holding all of everybody else's energy from day to day. So you have to be able to figure out a way
No,
to
you will
release it. So
self-destruct.
that's good.
You will burn out. You will
Yes.
you will implode. Yeah, that's just gonna happen.
So what are you finding, or what do you see in your studies?
What I see in my studies is that I actually did a lot of research. I actually want to send it to you also. Maybe we can talk about it on another live.
Hmm.
I've done research about addiction. I've done addiction research. So the way I titled my addiction research is called The Anatomy of Addiction. And one of the
Hmm.
things that I've been able to discover through this research, with the Lord's mercy and help, is that every human being pretty much is addicted to something or someone
Yes.
at one point or at another point in our lives, or multiple times, multiple points within our lives. So
Hmm.
addiction is something that affects all of humanity, from the creation of Adam and Eve until the last person that will ever exist, and all in between. All of us as humanity, regardless of the era, regardless of the civilization, the eon, the epoch in time, what have you, we every human society, every human civilization, every human demographic has had to contend with addiction.
Addiction.
Addiction. And unfortunately, most people, when we think of addictions, we only think of substance abuse when we think of addiction.
Right.
But addiction
And
covers
that's not it.
basically every facet of the human experience.
And addictions are more or less something that stimulates the chemicals within the brain that gives you something, that makes you feel something, that you want more of it. So, and I definitely agree with you on that,
More
because
importantly,
sometimes,
it's a replacement and a compensation for something that is missing, that's not supposed to be missing.
okay, okay. And that happens sometimes in toxic relationships. Some people get addicted to
Not
being in
sometimes,
toxic
all the time in
relationships.
toxic relationships. All the time in
Yeah.
toxic relationships. Yeah.
And
I
it's
mean, to be
hard to
honest,
break that.
that's one of the things that predicate and define toxic relationships is addiction.
Yeah.
And it
Yes.
doesn't matter what
And
relationship you're talking about. It doesn't matter whether it's a parental relationship with a child relationship with a parent, business relationship, personal relationship, sexual relationship, whether you're in a gang or a mob, those are relationships also. So it doesn't matter what relationship you're referring to. Those dynamics of toxicity definitely exist if you allow them
they
to.
exist. And I can say that because I went through a period of being in my own toxic relationship, and it's not until you come out of it and look back inward that you realize, a lot of people will say, I'm never going to be in that. That'll never happen to me. But you can never say never. I'll say that, because sometimes you'll go into a situation and you'll go, how did this even happen? And then when you get out of it, you're like, whoa, I can't believe that happened, but I'm glad I'm out of it. So it's possible sometimes for even the strongest people can end up in situations that are toxic and not realize how. And then once you realize it, and because you're a strong person, you're able to get out of it. A lot of people say, well,
I'm
why
glad
can't
you
that person
mentioned that.
just leave? Yeah.
What you mentioned is very important because, oftentimes in relationships, when the relationship ends, oftentimes we'll say to ourselves, or we'll say publicly to try to get sympathy or empathy or what have you, we'll say, quote unquote, I ignored the red flags. When people say shit like that, it annoys me greatly because
Yeah.
we are the red flags. And I'm explaining
Right.
what I mean. Anytime and every time that we piss and moan about another human being the quote unquote red flag, or them having quote unquote red flags within them, we're literally ignoring and we're being apathetic to the reality that what we see in a person also exists within us. Like, for example, the classic military movie about the Vietnam War, the movie Platoon, produced and directed by Oliver Stone. Towards the end of the movie, the final scene in the movie, the main character in the movie, played by Charlie Sheen, he says, we didn't defeat the enemy, we defeated ourselves, because the
Ah.
enemy was in us.
Mm.
And the reason how and why I say that is because the first time I saw that movie, I was like 6 years old. And I didn't really understand any of the powerful dynamics of the movie as a 6-year-old. But as
Right.
I grew older, as I matured, I understood every message in the movie, especially that one. And the reason how and why I
Hmm.
bring this up is because anytime and every time that we claim that the other are red flagged, or that the other has red flags, what we're literally doing is that we're masking the red flags that we see within ourselves, but we're too cowardly to address.
Well, I was going to say we don't take accountability.
No responsibility, no accountability, right? And just like how we look in the mirror and we say, oh, I want to get in shape, or I want to eat right, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. The same way we do that, spiritually and psycho-emotionally, we need to carry that same energy. When we see something within ourselves that's spiritually negative, that's spiritually toxic, we're not supposed to ignore that. We're supposed to fix it for ourselves, by ourselves. If we see something within ourselves psycho-emotionally that's negative, that's toxic, we're not supposed to dismiss it or deflect it. We're supposed to repair it. Like, for example, just like when Allah says in the Quran, chapter 13, verse 11, Allah says, verily, Allah doesn't change what's within any people until they change what's within themselves. So if we want Allah to correct us, we have to correct ourselves. If we want our condition to be better, we have to actually put in the work, the groundwork, to improve ourselves. Because no one can fix us. We have to fix us.
When you say that,
can help us. Someone can assist us in fixing us. But the exclusive responsibility to fix ourselves is upon ourselves. We can get help from anyone.
I want to say, so when you say that, that leads me into the whole relationships in our community right now with these genders. We are constantly blaming the other sex for the issues within our own. Women are blaming men because,
and men are blaming women when we really should be blaming ourselves. Because the way Allah decided to create the human being, He created us in pairs, and He created us as allies of one another, not as enemies of one another. That's number one. Number two, we are reflections of each other. So any positivity that I see within you is only a reflection of the positivity that exists within myself. Likewise, any negativity that I see within you is only a reflection of the negativity that exists within myself. Because as human beings, positivity and negativity exist within all of us. Dually. It's a dimension of duality. However, we have what's known in the Arabic language as al-mashi'a, free will. We have the free will to choose positive character behavior or negative character behavior.
Absolutely. I've always said that.
Every single day of our lives. Every single day of our lives, we have to decide whether we're going to be positive people or negative people. Every single day of our lives, every moment, we have to decide whether we're going to manifest positivity or manifest negativity.
To me, I always want, I always say that the strongest thing you have is free will. Your free will, it just is the strongest emotion that supersedes everything. You have the free will to love somebody. You have the free will not to. You have the free will to be in a relationship that's caring, and you have the free will not to. You have choices. So I want to really dig in a little bit more on why we're calling this gender war. So what we've noticed, we've had the whole Kevin Samuels, what I want to call it.
Era.
I don't know, cycle. Okay, era. There you go. That's the word. We've had the whole Kevin Samuels era where, for whatever reason, women continually called in to his show and were torn apart. And from what I've seen, that it wasn't just women in the beginning, it was men. But he didn't become popular until it really focused on women. And
I mean, he was a smart guy. He understood what I tell people all the time: controversy is the best publicity.
He understood, but at the same time, for me, I felt as though it didn't do us any good. It showed some things, but it didn't help us to get together. It divided us even further from each other. Yeah, you might have been able to see, a woman who wants something that may be out of her quote unquote league, but you really didn't tell women, to me, how they can get to where they need to be. It was just more of a tearing down segment.
I get what you mean. There was too much breakdown and not enough build up.
There was no build up. And I see that a lot with a lot of podcasters and YouTube channels of these guys that talk. But there was one recently where the guy broke down the women that went to a riding class. I'm not going to say what kind of riding, because we're all adults and you know what it is.
But, you know what they say, what's understood doesn't need to be explained.
There you go. So he literally was like, this is what's wrong with black women. This is why nobody wants you. This is what you done. I'm saying, whoa, 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 whoa. Did you just literally take me as a black woman and put me in a box with what these women are doing, instead of saying, I wish our sisters, or I wish our women, yeah, right. Or I wish this is not what we were doing. Instead, he ripped these women apart and took all women and put them in the same basket. And that's where I have a problem with when we're talking about one another, even with women. When we're saying all men, all black men are bad fathers, all black men are in jail, all black men stop putting all of them in a basket, because that doesn't help. Because
it's not just. It's unjust, it's unfair, it's not intelligent, and it's not realistic.
No, it's not at all. And then it hurts the chances of someone like myself. I had a discussion with a friend a couple weeks ago about TD Jakes. He had made a post about women are now more masculine. And my response to him was, what am I supposed to do? I have to survive.
I'm going to argue something different. Because, I mean, realistically, it's impossible for a woman to be masculine, just like it's impossible for a man to be feminine. There's the illusion of female masculinity. There's the illusion of male femininity. Masculinity is an exclusive quality for biological males. If you're not biologically male, it's impossible to be masculine. If you're not
that was his
female,
wrong wording.
To be feminine.
Yeah, the wording that he chose wasn't right. But what I explained to my male friend was this: in a world right now where there's not many choices for men, and there's too many choices of women for men, you kind of left people like myself in a situation where I have to survive. Meaning I have no choice but to go out here and change a light bulb, or to mow my own grass, or to get my own car fixed, or to learn how to change a tire. These things that you would typically ask or hope for a man to be there to do for you as a woman, because all of that independent stuff, that's cute, but I don't want to be that independent. I want there to be a man in the midst that is a buffer. I want to keep my nails and stuff pretty, okay? So this idea that men...
I think you just mentioned that, right? I'm glad you mentioned that. Those quote-unquote manly skills, those are skills that women should know anyway. Just like a man should know how to do laundry.
And that's what I was getting ready to get to.
Just like a man should know how to clean, a woman should know how to use a gun. A woman should know how to fight. A woman should know how to change a tire.
And that's how I was raised.
These skills are not gender-centric. Those skills are not androcentric, and they're not genocentric.
Right.
However, we know, obviously, historically, history has taught us that these are things that are known of men to predominantly
by gender
dominate.
Right.
And there are things that women have predominantly dominated in patriarchal societies, which things like secularism, things like feminism, things like a lot of other isms, right? The proliferation of homosexuality, the proliferation of you could be any gender you want, and gender fluidity and all this stuff. It's literally turned a lot of shit topsy-turvy upside down. But just in general, those particular skills that you detailed, that you mentioned.
Not just being a human, a person that's capable of living.
Those are human survival skills.
That's it. And that's what I was trying to explain to my friend. Like, this is just how I survive.
No. Yeah.
Right. And that's what I told him. I'm like, I'm not it doesn't mean that I don't need a man. Don't misunderstand my independence or me being able to pay my bills and keep a roof over my head as me not needing a man. That just means I know how to live as a person.
Right. Someone asked a good question just now. Someone asked, what defines masculinity
Yes.
and femininity? Who decides that certain things should be classified in these two categories? That's a good question. The number one thing we're going to look at is basic biology. We're just going to look at basic biology. There are certain key things that we know, body posturing, body language. We know there's certain things that are exclusive to women. Like, for example, a woman switching her hips when she walks. That's not a masculine quality. When you have men trying to walk like how women walk naturally, that's a serious problem. That's just one example.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, it's been a lot of things said over this past year, and it's a very, very sticky situation for most. At this point, some people just don't even know what they can and cannot say. But I will say
everyone's walking on eggshells. Like, for example,
that's what I was going to say. Everybody has to walk on eggshells.
Made an excellent point. Dave Chappelle made an excellent point about Bruce Jenner. How the fuck do you have a person who's biologically male who gets dubbed by Time Magazine
nominated? That to me, nominated, as a woman, would be right. That was hurtful. That was hurtful to me. I'm sorry.
Every single woman should be absolutely offended by that.
Yeah.
Every single human female should be disgusted by that. But you have women, certain women, not all women, but you have certain women who literally celebrated that and praised that. But then in the same breath, they have the audacity to bitch and moan about patriarchy and misogyny. By you co-signing Bruce Jenner being nominated and winning Time Magazine's quote-unquote
you kind of write yourself off. You write yourself off.
You're literally co-signing misogyny.
Yeah, you write yourself off.
I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that the homosexual male is the most misogynistic person in human history, because he wants to imitate and emulate women so bad. They hate women so bad that they go out of the window, they jump out the window to try to prove that they could be a better woman than a woman. Especially these transformers, especially these guys who imitate women. And then on the flip side, you have women who hate themselves so much that they jump out the window to try to be a man, to imitate a man. And that, by definition, is a manifestation of self-hate. But we don't want to have those conversations.
I will say, and this podcast is open for the conversations on both sides. I will say that. This is a free platform to have all conversations with anyone to explain and express themselves. But it is a very confusing time. It really is, because not only are women put in a position where we're walking on eggshells, but us explaining to our children as well on certain things. And we now have to break down all of this to children, and it's a very confusing thing. And you want to teach children to be okay with people, but at the same time, you want them to understand who they are without confusing them. And it's confusing for me as a parent to try to explain all that's going on in the world. It's like just a storm of just everything. But I really want to focus more on why our community right now, and I'm not just saying Black community, but the community of men and women, why we're not in the same households, because we're constantly fighting against each other. Like we can't seem to find an even ground, because we can't build families without communities, and your communities can't be built without the families. And these families are just non-existent because we're not finding each other anymore.
There is no society without community, and there is no community without family.
Right. And that has become a problem.
How are you going to have a principled, integral structure when books that are authored called My Two Dads or My Two Moms is literally shoved down people's throats, where prison culture is proliferated and pontificated and promoted through music. And we all know what happens behind the wall. Homosexual culture is a staple of prison culture. And this is known fact.
Yeah.
So when you
Yeah,
have
and
these
that's not
types of
that's not
things
talked
that
about
break down,
enough of what goes on. Uh-oh. There you go.
oh, okay.
Yeah, that's not discussed enough. Why we have such a divide within our communities, and why we're constantly at each other's throats.
You know why?
Like I
Because we
said,
think we're better than each other. We think that we're each other's
yes,
superior, as opposed to
yes,
recognizing and accepting the reality that we weren't created to be each other's superior. We were created to be each other's partners in life. Now, obviously, there's roles that men must play, and there's roles that women must play. At the same time, these roles don't make anyone better inherently or worse inherently. It just means that our roles are different. And each role is equally important. Like the
Well,
man
let me
being the
ask you this.
hunter-gatherer and the provider is literally just as important as the woman being the first nurturer and cultivator of the children. Like, I'll give you an
Have
example.
you watched?
Like,
Wait 1 second before you go into that. There's a series right now that a lot of people are aware of that I've been watching. I'm on the 2nd or 3rd season, Handmaid's Tale, and The Handmaid's Tale, basically, because of all that we're talking about, is why it happened. Because of how everybody is trying to make everybody equal and all this is fine and blah, 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 blah. The amount of human birth goes down. So in order to get the birth rate to go up, they've decided to take everything that we see in society right now away from the women and only give them one primary role, and that is to create life. That is it.
right,
They take
to be
everything.
birthers, right,
That's
to be
it.
baby makers, basically.
Because
right.
they feel that's the only role. Like they feel that because we became too educated, too powerful, too independent, all of these things messed up the human race. Do you feel that we're on that edge where if we
You know what
don't,
they say, art imitates life. I'm not saying that it's gonna exactly happen.
but it can, it's a very, and that's why I want people to watch the series, because it can happen.
I'm not gonna say the probability is there. I'm gonna argue that the potential is there, not the probability, because I just have to say Allah knows best on that. But I can definitely say that the potential is there.
The
And I can
potential,
definitely
yes.
say that
If we're not
art
careful,
imitates life
yes.
in many respects, in many ways, right?
Yeah.
Now, one thing I can definitely say, certain pockets of human societies, that can definitely be a reality. But for humanity holistically, I can't say that that's a reality for humanity holistically. I can say in certain pocket regions of the planet, that can definitely be a reality. But humanity holistically, I can't say that.
Yeah. And this was a book, I believe, that was written before it became a series back from like the 80s, somebody told me. So this series that's on Hulu is pretty old, but it's based, they wrote it for it to fit us now. And it's so crazy how all the arguments and the things and the issues that we're having right now.
Fruition, like George Orwell's book, 1984.
Yes. So, we have to, like you said, we have to be very careful of how we live our lives, because we can possibly step into some deep crap that we don't want to be in the midst of. And now with what we believe as our rights as women being taken away, I found it crazy that women's rights are taken away, but everybody else's rights are intact. I thought that was mind-blowing. That we even have to have the discussion of a woman's reproductive organs. Like, how in the world is this even a discussion on what to do with somebody else's body? On what makes us even women.
I'm glad you mentioned that. From what I know about the historicity and the history of politics and U.S. politics and political policy, the reason how and why Roe v. Wade was axed is exclusively because of ethno-demographic.
Oh, well, you
trend.
knew where I was going with it. Absolutely.
Yeah, of course. White supremacy is looking at places like the US, and they've caught on to something. They've caught on to the fact that non-Muslim Euro people are having less children.
Mm-hmm.
And because non-Muslim Euro persons are having less children, and since things like abortion are in the mix of things, they figure, okay, we need to get this shit right. We need to bring our numbers back up.
Yeah.
So that's why they decided.
But here's the thing: it's not even. We're looking at it as abortion, but it's even more so. But I was going to say, it's not even just abortion. It's the fact that they just have a problem of creating life altogether. There's infertility problems
that's true,
within that.
But that's why they want to act something like Roe versus Wade, because it's a known fact that non-Muslim Euro people, like Judeo-Christian Euro-Americans, have more abortions than any other ethno-demographic in the United States. And as other demographics, as other ethno-demographics, as other religio demographics start to rise, by default, their numbers start to plummet. So the way to counteract that, they want to abolish Roe v. Wade. But here's the problem. They've allowed Becky bin Laden to run wild and free, and now she's all fake woke, and Becky bin Laden don't want to get pregnant. Becky bin Laden wants to have their abortions. So white women, the Euro woman is not on code. At least not a lot of them. They're not on code. So this is kind of like backfiring in a lot of ways in the face of white supremacy, because there's so many Becky bin Ladens that are not on code.
And what people fail to understand, they couldn't just make a law just for a certain race of people. They had to make a law all the way across the board, you know.
Right. There had to be a degree of universalism. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, a lot of us are concerned with it. And I am still concerned because, again, I don't feel that anyone should have any. That would be like, and this was always my argument with men. How would men feel if someone told you that you, like, I know men that have gotten snipped. They've gotten themselves snipped. How would you feel if somebody, how would you feel if, that's right. How would you feel if someone said you are not allowed to get a vasectomy because you're ending life before it starts, or that's where life starts? So now we're telling you what you can and cannot do with your bodies. Or how would men feel if we started saying, well, hey, you can no longer take a little blue pill because that interferes with your chemistry in your body? You know, these things are I mean, I know that they'll never touch it because it has to do with men, but it needs to be looked at as, well, it's not right to do this to women if we're going to just let the men run amok. You know, it's not right.
There's only one instance where I would ever co-sign vasectomies or chemical castrations, and that's in the case of men who are confirmed to be guilty of sex crimes.
Absolutely. I agree. There is another instance. Men that consistently have children that they are not taking care of. When they got all these kids out here.
But you got to remember something. It takes two hands to clap.
It does. It does. And that's why I tell people, stop blaming Nick Cannon. Stop blaming Nick Cannon, because the women have decided to lay down with him and to have these children, knowing that he has other children. So he's been doing it on his own.
It's like I tell people all the time: men pursue women, women choose men. So, and just like, and I have this conversation with men and women equally. Like, for example, how a man is quick to say out of the side of his lip that a woman is a thought. I really encourage men to not say that for two reasons. Number one, I'm coming from a paradigm of being Muslim first, right? And there's a very important thing that Allah says in the Quran in chapter 5, verse 8. Allah says, and never let your hatred against any people prevent you from behaving justly. So to call a woman a thought, whether she is or she isn't, is a separate issue. But to just say that, that's not positive character, number one. Number two, on average, 9 times out of 10, most men who would dare call a woman a thought, they're only doing so because that woman wasn't a thought for them.
That's what I was thinking in my head.
if that woman was sucking and fucking that guy, they wouldn't even say thought out of their mouth to describe
Because
that
they're
woman.
getting what they want out of it. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. And then also, when a man pursues a woman, every man knows what type of time a woman is on. That's why they're pursuing them. So if you catch a woman in the club, if you catch her in traffic and she's out there, you're obviously pursuing what you want. So if she chooses you, if she lets you have her, right, you're not justified to judge her for being a thought, because that's the type of woman you chose. I mean, that's the type of woman you pursue. Because like I tell people all the time, men pursue women, women choose men. Yeah. And likewise
And that's
with
the
women.
same thing for women as well.
Women, they unjustly judge men, but I'm like, yo, you chose this man.
That's right.
A woman doesn't have a justification to judge a man that she chose. Because let's be real, with the exception of sexual abuse, a woman has full leverage when it comes to this game that we play as men and women.
Absolutely.
Unless if a man didn't rape you, you chose him. Period.
Yeah. Because you chose to deal with him and his nonsense.
Exactly. Because with the exception of sexual abuse, the woman has complete leverage. The woman is the one who allows the man to have entrance, pun intended.
Right. So if we don't want you, we don't want you, plain and simple.
Exactly. So unless or until a woman allows a man access, he's not going to get it. And again, like I said, if they didn't rape you, you chose them. Plain and simple.
Right. Right. No, I agree. And us as women, we have chose some messed up men, and it's okay, because you have to learn really. And I can say that because I've learned on what it is that I'm looking for, and they're not always perfect, but in this walk of life.
Well, I mean, none of us are perfect. Like, there's no such thing as the quote-unquote perfect person.
You're never going to get perfect.
But
what can you deal with?
There is such a thing as the right person and the wrong person. There's definitely such a thing as the right person and the wrong person. There's no such thing as the perfect person, because human beings are inherently always going to be flawed. Right. We're imperfect by nature. Right.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is I'll say this. You can't get with somebody knowing. Women, stop thinking that you can change men. I'll say that. Let me go there. Stop thinking, well, you know what? I know he has this problem and that problem, but if I can maybe he just needs the right woman to bring out this and that. And I'm well past that.
They listen to too much Beyonce. They listen to that song "Upgrade You" too much, and they think that's reality.
I'm past that. I don't want to change you. I'm not trying to fix you, because whatever issues you have, they're your issues. I can't fix them. You got to fix them. And that brings us back to what we was talking about in the beginning. You have to be accountable for you. So I can't. Well, I was telling my uncle a couple of weeks ago. I said, I'm gonna stop dealing with guys that people say I saw potential in them. If you didn't see potential in yourself, I don't need to see potential in you, because me seeing potential in you that you can't see for yourself is a waste of my time.
That's just how I see it. Unless you can see it within yourself.
It means nothing unless you're gonna. That's right. That's right. And that's where I'm
more
at.
Importantly, it means nothing if you choose to not manifest it.
That's right. And that's where I'm at, because I was picking people like, you know what? I see potential in this. He has potential. And then, you get in it and you like, oh my God, he just won't see his own potential through. He can't figure it out.
But it goes back to what you mentioned. And I'm not going to pick on you. I'm not going to say you personally. I'm just going to keep it general for women. There are women who literally think
that you can change a man.
They really think they could use their tuna box to change a man.
Yeah,
just like this man
tuna box.
who
I like
think that their pipe game can change a woman, and it's not reality.
Right. It's not. Unless that person has their own, like for me, I knew that it was certain things about me that I wanted to change. I knew there was a certain path that I wanted to go on. So because of that, I chose to stop dealing with certain people. I chose to take certain people out of my circle, male and female, all the way around.
Right, because by default, we are who we attract.
That's right. That's right. We are full-blown energy, and you want to attract the right
we're reflections and mirrors of each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have enjoyed this conversation with you, and it really, really can go and go and go and go. on so many different levels and topics when it comes to men and women. And I want to try to continue maybe having you on as a segment of Gender Wars, keeping the title Gender Wars, where we come on maybe every once a month, once every 2 months, where we can kind of talk
Honestly,
like
I'm
this
down with
about.
that. I'm
Yeah.
really down with that.
All right.
I'm,
All right.
I'm
Guys,
really down with
please
that.
let me know what you think.
And since you
Yeah.
mentioned that, the next thing that I want us to talk about is this mythos about quote unquote high value. I really want to get deep into that. I want to get into that full throttle.
All right, all right. So you heard it, guys. You know we're going to come back with wine, wealth, and tea, and this is going to be now our segment of Gender Wars, and it's going to be something worth watching and getting into. And send us your different topics that you may want Ralph to kind of to give his educational background on, because this is one brother that I went to school with, by the way. Who is just his educational background and his insight and his spirituality all the way around is just a delight and a great conversation to have. And again, there is no filter. We're able to talk about what we want to talk about here on Wine, Wealth, and Tea, because we are not paid or sponsored by anyone. So if you like what you heard this evening, make sure you like it, share, find us on YouTube, where this will be appearing in about another 40 minutes after I make some changes and things, and upload it onto the YouTube site, and share it, like it, comment, and that's what it is. Thank you so
By the way,
much for being a
I'm
part.
also an author. I have a book I wrote
Yes.
with a co-author. It's called Never Too Late to Grow: 30 Tools of Empowerment. And myself,
Ooh.
Gareth Bryant, and my co-author, Layla Letitia Bradford, is available on Amazon. So,
Oh, please, can you, if I don't know if you can type it on your end, type it in so we can see where you said it's on Amazon, but you know exactly the title of it, so that everybody can go and purchase
I'm
it.
doing that right now as we speak.
Yes, yes. Yes, reading is fundamental. I push my kid to do it. Although, you know, a lot of these children right now are very tech. I make a habit of making my daughter put down her iPad, and we got a request to send. Okay, request to be in the video just in a moment. That's going to be my next segment after we finish. But where I allow her to make her read a book, an actual book, flip pages, not press buttons, flip pages.
No, because it's a different experience.
It is a different experience. And I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to go to my next segment. But the experience is, I'll tell you all, and I've said it before on other platforms, watch Book of Eli. It is a different experience without books.
No,
We
that
need those
book,
books.
that movie was deep.
I will never forget it. I keep telling people, you better watch it. You better watch it. It really, really, really puts your mindset on a different level when it comes to educating yourself and reading. You just have to. So please, those are the two things that I want the audience to go and check out. Handmaiden's Tale and Book of Eli. And I will see you, Garth, next month. We'll talk and get together, and we'll put some notes together and go from there.
Oh no, yeah, we're definitely going to do that, without a doubt.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, brother, you go ahead and have a great weekend. Get yourself some rest, power down.
Thank you. You as well.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Guys, that was a great segment. I really enjoyed it. And now we're going to add in Miss Tremaine. There she is. Hey, girl.
Hey, I'm sorry. I was trying to get in, and my phone was not being great with me. But that's
It was
okay.
not being-
I'm in now.
Yes, that was a crazy segment right there. I mean, that was a lot of information, and he's going to be coming back on for Gender Wars.
A lot of information. I heard some things I agree with. I was in the background. I'm sorry I couldn't join in tonight. I just had some
Yes,
other
yes, I
obligations.
explained to everybody earlier. Yeah, kids have gone back to school, and you know, you got to keep it going, because you know the babies need you first.
Yes,
I
yes.
love your head wrap. That's beautiful.
Thank you. Yes,
Yes.
y'all had a lot of interesting conversations tonight. And I know we've talked about toxic relationships a lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you know, I heard your guest who was very good. I didn't get a chance to catch his name, but as you stated, he'll be on sometime.
Gareth Bryant. Yeah, Gareth
Yeah.
Bryant. And yeah.
You know, some of the
Yeah.
things he said, I was trying to take notes while doing other things, and I was trying to highlight some points. And I heard him say something, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because I was trying to multitask. He said toxic relationships are addictive. Was that what
That is, yeah, you can have an addiction. Yes.
really? Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that was something that I definitely personally agreed with. And that's when I was
Really?
explaining to him my own personal experience of being in having a toxic relationship and having an addiction to it as well.
But
It
was
was
it
hard to
really an
break.
addiction? Because like when I take people through regimens and you come to me and you say, hey, you know, I have high blood pressure, whatever it is. Now I'm going to a holistic start and I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna bring it all
Yeah,
in.
I'm going to say yes. And the reason why I can say yes is because even though you know that person is no good, you still want to be and deal with that person for some reason. You don't know why. And that's the addiction part of it. You don't know why, but you still want to interact with them. You still want to
Right.
try to get to
But
them.
is it
And it's
more
not until you can
underlying issues
completely
though?
you have to detox yourself. And I read a
Correct.
book on it. You
Yeah.
detox yourself to cut that addiction of being in that toxic relationship. So yes, I've gone through it.
Or
Yes.
is it underlining situations that allow you to stay in those circumstances? For instance, when we look at detoxifying our body, a lot of people
Hmm.
put toxic things in their body because of things that they've encountered as a child. Like what we eat, seriously, sweets, people that crave salty food. A lot of that goes back to things that we've dealing with in our childhood and in the present. Sweets, people that are addicted to sweets, they need to challenge their childhood. It's something that happened in their childhood, like these different cravings that we have. So what I'm saying is, when you're in a relationship and you know it's toxic and you're in that relationship and you're staying in the relationship, is it that it's an addiction, or is it an underlying reason why you're in there? Is there something where your father wasn't there and maybe you're trying to make up for that
I
father
would
role?
say it could be a little bit of both. It could be a little bit of both.
That's what I'm getting to.
And I went to therapy and talked about my toxic relationship, and it wasn't anything that happened to me as a child. In that, it was just for some reason addiction of this person. And once I was able to break that addiction, fine, moved on with life. But it took a while, and it was hard. So I definitely understand how people can be in addictive situations with people. And when you said put things in your body, when you become intimate with people and they're toxic, that is also being in your body, in your spirit. They're wrapped in you, and you have to get that addiction out
Yeah, I
by
understand.
going through those
Yeah.
detox.
Yes, I
Yeah.
understand. And I had this conversation with someone because I said, I think we use relationships that we're stuck in. We use the word toxic too loosely, and we need to really understand what it means to be in a toxic relationship, such as Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Like
Hmm.
that
That
was
was
a
to- that
toxic
was that was
relationship,
a toxic
you
mess.
know? Or are these relationships that we in, like, what is the underlining meaning of why I'm in this particular relationship? Is
I
it
don't
because
think
I'm
many people know,
comfortable?
and that's why therapy is such a need to go to
Yeah,
therapy to
absolutely.
find out
Absolutely.
why are you in these relationships. And mine was codependent. It was a codependent
Yes.
relationship.
Yes.
That's what we found out.
Yes. I love that. We've been having this discussion so much with women, and it seems like a lot of women are in these relationships where it's just so much going on. Lately, I've
Yeah.
just encountered a lot of women trying to make decisions on where they need to be in the relationship, or if they even want the relationship. And they'll be so quick to say it's toxic, it's toxic. And I'll ask them, well, what's so toxic about it? Because if you're not going through, for me, now this is my opinion, toxic for me in a relationship is you're dealing with a lot of mental, emotional things going on. It may be physical abuse, it may be mental abuse, you got emotional abuse going on. Like, it's
It's levels.
correct. That is, you're losing all of yourself
Mm-hmm.
when you're in a toxic relationship. You're no longer
Mm-hmm.
yourself. You got to go find yourself. Or is
Yes.
it, like I said, an underlining situation that has you in this? Are you just comfortable
Well,
because
like
it's
I was
Mr.
explaining
Million
to him,
Dollars?
well,
You
like
know?
I was like I was explaining to him, you can actually look up and not even realize how, like for someone like myself that grew up in such a, my background.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
had to look and go, how in the world did this, why am I in this? How did that happen?
Yep, it can happen
So
to us.
it can happen to the best of us.
Yep.
And the stronger ones, like I feel that I am, are able to go, you know what? This ain't for me. You do this to somebody else,
Right.
but not for me. But it still takes a minute to kind of come out of it. You're
It
like,
does.
oh,
Just like
wait
your
a
body,
minute.
it takes a minute to
Yeah,
detox your body. I tell people those quick
you go
detoxes,
through some
people say
withdrawals. You go through
24
some
hours.
withdrawals.
People be like,
Right,
it's a
right.
24-hour detox. No, baby. A real detox takes longer than that, honey. You're going to
It
go through
is, yes. It
it.
takes weeks. It
It
takes
takes
weeks,
some
sometimes
time.
a month.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. And it's the
yes.
same thing for a relationship. I think that there are levels when you're trying to remove yourself
Well,
from.
one thing one of my therapists said that you have to understand too, people break up in relationships at different times. So even
Mhm.
though you might have broke off the relationship with that person might not yet be done. And they
Yeah.
have to break up when so I'm still reading a book right now, Understanding Toxic Relationships. And it says in that book that cord, you're still connected to that person. Even though you're done, they're
Mhm.
still going through emotional turmoil in the breakup because they're still holding on to that connection.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
everybody breaks up at a different time. And
Yeah.
as crazy as that is, you may argue and walk out the door and never see each other again, but you're still going through the motions. One
Yeah.
person may be over it right at that moment.
It
And I'll
takes
say, like, for myself, when I went through my divorce, I was over it like that as soon as I walked out the door.
probably because you had already
Um,
mentally checked out while you were still in the
yes,
marriage at
I
some.
was gone.
Once a
I
woman
was just
mentally
sign the
checks
paper
out,
and go.
exactly. Once we check out in the relationship, it's basically a done deal. We're just waiting for
Yes,
the
yes,
signatures to be signed on that piece of paper.
yeah, yeah. And I don't think the other party at that time was done with the marriage, and it took him some time. Um, everybody, like I said, everybody goes through their breakups in their own time. Hello, hello, thank you,
All right.
KJ. Yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was a very, very powerful segment, and I am glad that he's going to be coming back on for what we're going to call gender wars, where we
Hmm.
can kind of discuss things like this about what women have, and as he's a man, to give his perspective
Hmm.
on both levels. So it's going to be a very, very growing segment because we're going to have a couple other segments that we're
Yeah.
building
Yeah.
on for Wine, Wealth, and Tea, and that's going to be exciting.
Yes. I mean, I enjoyed the conversation from what I heard. Like I say, I was catching some key points, writing it down when y'all were talking about potential. And I heard
Hmm.
you talk about the potential in a man, and if he don't have the potential, you don't want him, right?
I'm not looking at nobody anymore and go,
So,
you know what? He can possibly be somebody.
well, here's
Mm-mm.
the
No,
thing.
have your
Well,
stuff
here's the
together.
thing. Here's the thing. So, and the young man said it. He said sometimes they don't know how to manifest. Like manifest, you got to know how to manifest. So
Yeah.
I feel like everyone don't see their full potential. Sometimes they need a person to come along and say, "Hey, you know what? You have more than what you really see." But the point is, they got to be
But they
willing
got to see it
to.
within themselves too.
But sometimes people don't see it. Sometimes it take another person to come to you and say, "Hey, Chrissy, you can do this. You can start your own wine company." But then
Well,
at that
I'm here to
point,
tell all of you men
if
out
you
there,
manifest it at that
I
point,
am not doing it anymore. I am tired. I'm tired now. Okay. I'm tired. Come with your stuff already ready. Okay. We all got some baggage. I got baggage. You got baggage. But what I ain't going to do is try to figure out what's in your bag.
oh my,
I'm
come
tired
on.
now.
Chrissy, there's a lot of men out there. They don't see their full potential. And I know you can help them get to that point.
Mm-mm.
So there's a
I
friend of
got
mine.
to help
So
Pilare get to its
so
full potential right now.
here's an example. There's a mutual friend that you and I both know. And this particular person want to start their business, right? They've been
Hmm.
no social media account, no business plan, like nothing. They just have the vision, right? But I see potential in that person, not from a romantic standpoint, but just from a potential to be more than what he is.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of became complacent, where he's at. So I came to him and I was like, hey, listen, so what do you want to do? Like, I
Mm-hmm.
started pulling it out of him, like,
Mm-hmm.
what is it? Well, this is what you, and it wasn't that, I guess he didn't know how to pull it out of himself. Like, he
Yeah.
didn't know how to get to that point of saying, you know what, I see what you see.
Yeah.
But after
I
a few
understand what you're saying.
conversations, he was like, you know what, you're right. This is where I need to go. And so I think there's a difference. If you meet a man and he don't see it and not trying to vision it, then I understand the walk away. But if you
Yeah.
meet someone and say, okay, well, show me, how do I manifest this? How do I begin to see
That's
the full
partnership.
potential that
That's
I
different.
possess?
That's a partnership. That is a partnership that I can deal with, but not I gotta fight tooth and nail for you to even see. I don't have the energy for that. I'm not raising any more grown men. I'm not.
Yes.
But a
Yeah.
partnership, yes. A partnership is you have the vision, or you have the dream. You just don't know how to execute.
Correct.
I
Yes.
can
Yeah.
deal with that.
Yeah. See, but again,
There. Now we have some balance.
okay, that's a start. That's a start. But like I was saying, a young man, it just took somebody just to sit down with him and say, this is what you need to do. And I mean, now he's like, okay, I'm getting it. I think,
Good.
see potential too. It deals with a lot of confidence as well,
Yeah.
and I think that that's what he was lacking at that point in time. But don't
Yeah.
give such a hard time.
One of the things I know me and you said we were going to talk about this evening briefly. We're not going to stay on too much longer, but Brittany Griner. So everybody is flipping. 9 years is a lot for some weed that wasn't even there. Some liquid weed that wasn't even there.
Yeah, the oil. Yeah.
But here's the thing, guys. I'm going to say this. May not like it. When you're going into other people's countries, do as the Romans do in Rome. Okay? I know she says she forgot and she packed it, and that very well may be true. But we can't expect for another country to treat someone from our country the way that we would treat them. And then here's another flip side to it. Had she been getting paid what she should have been getting paid as an athlete in this country, none of this would have never happened. That is the bigger discussion that we need to have. Like, why is the female version of LeBron James, as we have dubbed her, having to fly across the world to go and make money because she's not being paid what she should be paid here?
Mm-hmm.
I think that is something that really, really needs to be looked at, because if she's good enough to be in the Olympics, if she's good enough to play all over the place, then she's good enough to pay. The female soccer, they're just now getting the same amount as males. And it's just unreal, because these athletes work just as hard all the way around, and they all should be getting paid what's due, and they shouldn't have to go to other countries to get it. So I'm sorry that she even had to do it. But at the same time, when we're going into these other countries, we have to realize that us as Americans, nobody likes us. No matter which country we go to, they don't like us.
Yeah.
And you have to be careful. I hope that they work out a deal for her, but 9 years is a long time when we don't even get what is the time that we even get? Most of the states now it's legal, so I don't know what kind of time we even get now for it.
It depends on how much you have. And I think it goes back to one of the things is, before we can even address, the pay issue is a big thing, but I'll have to address, you're not getting paid with LeBron. You took a job overseas. We have to address it from that standpoint.
Yeah.
When you're in other countries, like you stated, I would not take any elderberry, sea moss, natural teas, essential oils. I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't take anything with me.
Yeah.
Just because I wouldn't want to be in a situation like Brittany's in. It is a very sad and very difficult situation, because I feel bad for her. I think it's a very harsh crime. And then there's a point of me that feels like, okay, well, there's a responsibility that you have to take, because as a athlete, a celebrity, you might as well say, you know, you have to be careful at all times. There's, people are always after you. They were
On,
looking
yeah.
for that. You know,
They were, yeah,
they
they
were
were
looking
waiting.
for
I
that.
felt like they almost waited for her to get there because they knew they can use her as a political pawn. They waited
Yes, and then that's what it has become. Really, it's not even about
because
the football
here's the
and
other
the
thing.
vapor
This
car.
wasn't her first time. She's been going to Russia for years.
Yes,
So for her to even accidentally pack it shows that she was used to getting through with whatever else she might have been getting used to going through with. And at this time, they decided to
make an
nitpick.
example out of her.
That's
And I
all.
think with everything going on in Ukraine and Russia, I would have just been a little bit more careful about how I was handling myself. And I think
Yeah.
that's the point that disappoints me a lot about her, is because as African American women, period, we have to always be careful about how we handle ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I I feel both situations. It's a very difficult subject to speak on. It really is, because it could have been
It
any one.
is.
It could have been me with some
And
elderberry,
it and I was gonna say it could have been me, God forbid, while I was on vacation, and who knows? It's not that I carry anything, but like you said, essential oils or anything that could have been something that they don't allow in their country, and I wouldn't have got the attention that she's getting right now on the
exactly,
world platform.
exactly.
So, even though it's unfortunate that it happened to her, it was meant to happen to her because of
Yes,
who
I
she is.
agree. I agree.
You know what and I know people may go, well, it shouldn't have, but certain people, certain things are meant to, just like, I hate to say it, but it was meant to happen to George Floyd,
I was just about
what
to say
happened to
that.
him,
Yeah. And that goes with God has placed people in certain predicaments and situations, make an
to shine a
example.
light on the whole
Correct.
situation,
Because we become relaxed about a lot of situations. We
Mm-hmm.
become
Mm-hmm.
very relaxed. And
Yeah.
sometimes we have to know, like, hey, oh, wow. Because, like, when I went on a trip recently, it made me kind of take a step back and was like, okay, let me check my bags. What do I
Mm-hmm.
have in there? Because
Yeah.
before this, I would get a plastic bag and throw some herbs in there. And what I mean by herbs, y'all, some natural teas, and be
That,
on my way.
there's natural stuff, some tea.
Natural tea, and be on my way. But then I had to take a step back. I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm not even trying to do this in TSA. I'm not even gonna even put myself in this type of position. Where my things
Yeah.
got to get tested. Is it or is it not? Let's not even go
I
there.
mean, come on, they tested was it a McDonald's breakfast sandwich? I don't even understand why he packed that and that was
Girl, they
weird.
should
But
test it. They need to test it. Okay.
they gonna test it to find out it don't dissolve. It don't
Exactly.
break down.
Exactly. But it's a very difficult. It's very difficult. And then the fact that they want to trade off the whole trading off.
Now, here's the thing with that, guys. If you haven't heard, they want to trade off with it. He's an arms dealer, and now they got a
Two
murderer
of
that they
them.
want too. Yeah, they want
Yes.
a murderer too. And with them being in war right now, is it smart to let an arms dealer and a murderer go? I don't know if I trust that with Russia. And not only do we now have a problem with Russia, now we got China. It's just,
That's not even an
yeah,
equal trade off. My girl has some oil.
no,
It's not even an equal trade off.
it's not. It's like we giving that for that. What? And it's two people that stuck over there. But again, I will say this: stay out of these people's country. I know it's easier said than done, but just stay out.
But I get it.
Right
She was trying
now,
to make a living, though. I get it. A lot
yes,
of that
and
goes
that's where my argument is right now
and then
with
it comes to
with
that. Yes.
you know nobody should have to leave their country to go to another country, especially in the most powerful country in the world, to go to another country to make money. Like that part to me, we're supposed to be the most powerful country in the world, and she had to go to another country to make money. Are y'all kidding me?
So that's a whole nother conversation. That's a whole nother conversation. Yes, but I do
Well,
agree with
honey,
you.
it is Friday evening, and I'm glad we got a chance to do our little chit chat
Yes,
too.
yes,
And I'm
yes.
hoping that we'll have another guest next week, or if not next week, the week after that. But I do know we're definitely booked in for one for September, and that is going to be a really, really, really fun one. So I can't wait. I am glad that we were able to talk. I am going to get on off now. and
Yeah.
go and work on some Polare business. And
Yeah.
I know you
Oh,
have to
that's
work on
right.
some
You have
healing
a
while
big
living
show
business.
coming up, right?
Yes, I'm so excited.
October the
22nd.
two
So
two two
10,
two.
22, 22.
Yeah.
Yes, right. That's right. Tickets are available on Eventbrite. If you'll see a link, I'll post it later on this evening onto IG. It's already posted and circulating on Facebook right now. So make sure you go and purchase your tickets. And I will see
Okay.
you later, dear. This is
Yes, I'll
Wine
be
Wealth
there.
and Tea.
Yes, thank you everyone for joining in. Have a great weekend.
Bye. Stay safe.
Bye bye.